Drum roll, please. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hutchins. I'm the executive director of the Maine Association of Nonprofits, and this is a program we started in April of 2020 called MANP Connects. And originally, the intention was to provide an opportunity on Friday mornings for nonprofit people from across the state of Maine to get together and make some sense and find out some important information about the lockdown and what it was going to mean for ourselves, our families, our employees, and our organizations and the people we serve. And then it really, it's continued, like a lot of things, a lot of uncertainty that's continued. And we've discovered that as much as anything, the continued connection and opportunity to know that you are not alone, you're absolutely not alone. And some reassurance that there are others that are experiencing the same stresses or similar stresses that you are, and we are all here together to support Maine communities, and we're really the organizations at the forefront of strengthening the quality of life in Maine. And so our organization has continued these as an opportunity to maintain those connections and provide a space where you can come, know you're not alone, and find out maybe I'm hoping you can be inspired by some ideas that your colleagues are trying out, or maybe just some really important questions that you need to be sharing with your boards and your networks about how we proceed after such a prolonged time of uncertainty and concern. And so one of the things that we did at the beginning of 2022 is we, for our January MANP Connects, we decided to just open up the floor to what's top of mind. And there's no doubt that top of mind is employee burnout. And so among the many topics that we're hoping to explore once a month for the next several months on Friday mornings is a variety of questions around some of the things that are top of mind for you. But we thought we would start with employee burnout. And I've invited, as you may know, we did this last time. I'm going to invite 5 organizations that are in our network to share how they are managing the serious concerns of employee burnout. Before I do that, I want to offer a couple of thoughts. And one of them is we have all, as a entire global society, are going through a massive crisis all at once. And Kelly, I think, will be willing to share with you an article that she shared with me that compares what we've gone through together and the process by which we're being asked to both deploy and redeploy. Is this constant back and forth of, are we in the office? Are we out of the office? Do we have a crisis of health, or are things starting to wane? Are the hospitals getting more crowded, less crowded? Are the schools open or not? This back and forth can be compared to military deployment, and not at all to compare we can't possibly compare everybody's experience to one another, because clearly many of our friends and family have been much closer to this crisis and may have gone through the grieving process of actually losing someone. So in no way comparing our individual experiences to one another, but at the same time, the military goes through this process. And I was a military kid. My dad went on deployment for 6 months to the Antarctic. And there was always this process of when he would come back, and he always had to readjust. And it was odd, because it was like, what's wrong with dad? Why is it so hard for him to just fit right back in? And why are mom and dad going into the bedroom and having little secret talks about their relationship? You know, why is it that dad seems a little quieter? Why is he taking walks around the neighborhood? There was always a readjustment. And this article does a fabulous job it's a discussion between 2 people who have experienced military deployment. And they talk about how there's this series of micro changes that individually they don't really cross your mind, But then you realize that it's really this breakdown of routine. As human beings, we need routine. We need to be assured that the certain things are going to happen in the order that they're supposed to happen, and that the networks of people and the way we behave, those are really essential for our well-being. All of that is different. And we experienced here at MANP just the other day, it was the first time in 2 years that we had as many people in the office as we had. And I myself found myself joking about it, but it's real. I joked about, wait, I have to remember what it means to be courteous, right? I used to have this whole space to myself for almost 2 years. And then suddenly there were people in my space. And so it's those breakdowns of common norms. And so I really recommend that you read this article. It really helped me. And what it really helped me, and now the segue, I know you're all like, okay, could you just get to the meat of it here, Hutch? But the real segue for me was this is an opportunity, and the point of today is this is an opportunity for those of us who find ourselves in opportunities to lead, and that's not just the CEOs and executive directors, that can be anyone in an organization, board members, all levels of staff. If you're in an opportunity to lead others and be there for others, this is an opportunity for us to, step one, acknowledge that we are in this period of overwhelming adaptive change where everything has been upended. I said that to my board chair the other day. I said, do you realize, I have realized that between the necessity of the pandemic and our organization's commitment to equity that began before the pandemic, but was accelerated because of all the disparities and unfairness that has been highlighted through the pandemic, between our commitment to equity and our response to pandemic, there is nothing in our organization that we don't already have had to change or we aspire to change. Nothing. The cleaning person comes less often, so I had to adjust how many invoices I do every month, right? It goes to that granular level all the way up to we're reconsidering how to restructure our board so that it's more equitable. Every process, every habit, every norm is changing. That puts an enormous amount of stress on the individual. And the first thing we can do as employers is we can acknowledge. And there's this great line in that article that I was reading this morning: adapt, accept, and then give a hug. And that's the opportunity we have as employers and as people in groups, is we can demonstrate our leadership through this time and how complex it is. And it's not necessarily only the working conditions, but it's normal that people come back, they feel adrift, they come back, they want things to be normal again. And it also explains why a lot of people are cutting bait and they're going off to set themselves free and refigure things out again. And the best thing we can do as leaders is to acknowledge that and not make people feel bad about it. And let's work on it. That's why we're having this session today. That's why I've invited on some people to talk with us about it, because I want to hear how you guys are handling it. And so I'm going to start today with some thank yous to our sponsors. I'm going to start with some thank yous to Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, Machias Savings Bank, and Maine Biz. And I bet everybody on this call knows how awesome those organizations are and what tremendous supports they are. And they definitely make programs like this possible for MANP. So thank you. The other thing I want to start with today is a practice. Don't worry, we're not going to do anything too weird or touchy-feely. Don't worry. However, if we want to acknowledge, let's acknowledge the physical stress on our bodies. So just for 15 seconds, I'm just going to offer anyone who wants to just take a minute. We're going to take a deep breath together and we're going to blow it out. And we're going to try to put our shoulders down and back. Okay, ready? Okay, you can do this if you want. You don't have to if you want to. Ready? Shoulders down and back. There you go. I saw Justin straightening up in his chair. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's one thing we can do is we can encourage all of us to remember to ground our feet. The earth does have us, right? The earth is holding us. Gravity hasn't gone anywhere quite yet, so we can still count on that. All right. And then before, Justin, you're going to be up first, but before I introduce you, the other thing that I'm just throwing out there is I think my team is starting to realize after 5.5 years that I kind of like to add a little humor every once in a while. So I thought we would play a little game peppered through MANP Connects this morning. And I'm going to start, if Kelly's up for it, with a quick poll. We're going to play the game, Would You Rather? Okay. And so you're going to have two choices. And Kelly, anytime you want to throw up a poll. Thank you, Kelly, for telling everybody I'm hilarious. Okay. Would you rather take a walk on Popham Beach or hike Mount Katahdin? Okay, let's see. Look at that. I love this. This is like the best poll response I've ever gotten. I love it. Excellent. Okay, most of you would rather take a walk on Popham Beach. Very interesting. Thank you very much. Good. Okay, we're gonna do a few of those. I have a few of those peppered throughout MANP Connects. But in the meantime, I can tell Kelly's like, invite the friends, invite our friends. Stop talking, Hutchins. Okay, so Justin, how are you?
Doing well. Excited to be with you all.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being patient with my chatty Cathyness on Friday mornings.
No worries. I was learning some things.
Oh, good. So Justin, your organization is relatively new, full plates, full potential. Yep. You have 6 employees. Is that right?
Yep.
Is that right? Yep.
That's correct. Yep.
And I'm just trying to give people a sense of context, right? And your budget size is about 2 million, and your closer to between 500K and $1 million. And you're working on childhood food insecurity in Maine. Did I get that right?
You did, yeah.
Good. Yeah. And I know that my colleague Kelly had a great conversation with you, and that there are several things that you guys are doing at Full Plates to address this question of employee well-being. And I wondered if you could take a couple of minutes to share with us.
Yeah, I wanted to add one other piece of context that I think is relevant and gives us a lot more flexibility. I think we are largely an advocacy and systems change organization, so we're not engaging in direct service. And I think that's just critical because I think we're doing some great things, but I want to recognize that they're not always things that everybody else can do, and just want to name that. But yeah, really, I'm so appreciative that you're having this conversation. I think it's really important to normalize this and acknowledge it, as you said earlier, and always excited to share about what we're doing. I think a lot of the things that we've tried to do start really with that acknowledging piece. And one of the things we always try to do is to just center people as people first, and check in with people as people. I think it's common in the Zoom world for us to start with like, how are you doing? But it's sort of a perfunctory question as opposed to actually wanting to know how someone's doing. And so we've tried to build that into our practice in just sort of a day-to-day interaction kind of way, to actually honestly ask people how they're doing and mean it. I think how we kind of structure things from a time perspective is it starts with that acknowledgement that there are so many disruptions happening right now. I have 2 young kids who have been in and out of daycare depending on illness and just general illnesses, not to mention, COVID quarantines and things like that. So, I'm experiencing this as a parent every day, wearing my employee hat, not even just the leader hat. And so I think it's really important that we are recognizing that and naming that those things happen. But I think it's really also important as leaders that we model that, because words are important. But if a leader says one thing and says this is how we value things, but then they don't operate in that way, it tends to undermine that. So we have built a culture that folks are encouraged to not be using PTO for things like doctor's appointments or shifting their schedule. It starts with trust. And if folks are essentially trusted to get their work done, And if they want to shift their schedule to do that, they can do that. If they want to take an hour in the middle of the day and go walk their dog and clear their mind, they can do that. It's encouraged to do that. And again, I think we benefit from it not being direct service. The work can be done relatively flexibly. We're fully remote right now. And even, when we can come back together, I think we will come back together more frequently. But I think we'll largely still be a remote organization because the work can be done from anywhere. And so I think folks really appreciate that we have really set up this model to really encourage them to put themselves first and put their mental health first. Because I think the sort of line we sort of stick with is, if people aren't mentally in a place to bring their full selves to work, the work's not going to be very good. And so, our ability to have an impact starts first and foremost by ensuring our employees are at a place that they can come with 100% or as close to it. And I think that's been another learning during the pandemic, especially the last couple months. Starting a little bit better, but certainly towards the first of the year, and just the exhaustion from Omicron and it just seeming never ending, we kind of realized that no one is operating anywhere close to 100% right now. And so I think that's the other piece in learning here, is thinking about how can we adjust our expectations. Even before the pandemic, there is this issue of martyrdom in the nonprofit sector because the work is really never done. And so it could be easy to just keep working and working and working at it. But at a certain point, you have to turn off. And I think that's even more important to stay focused on now, because the work is still never done. In some ways, the work is harder and there's more work to be done. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, it's a surefire way that it's going to lead to burnout.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Is there a particular policy or a change that you've made in the last year or so that you can share with others that you are trying or you have already found successful?
Yeah, so last summer, I brought in a policy that I had at a previous organization and really enjoyed, where every Friday during the summer, we closed the office for half a day, basically. And it was just a giving chance, Maine in the summer is the best. And so we wanted to give folks a little extra time to experience that. But I think the thing that was sort of the key there is we did increase our PTO for folks, but there's a challenge with PTO, no matter what you talk about and how you build the culture, that folks still feel like when I'm taking PTO, my colleagues are working, the work doesn't stop, the office is still open. And so there's, even if you're really good at work-life balance, there's still always a little nagging thing in the back of your head. So the times we could take to actually physically shut down the office can be beneficial. And so building off of that, we made a decision recently to, for the rest of our fiscal year, which runs through June, at which point summer Fridays will pick back up. We're deciding to close the office one Friday a month. This is the first one today, actually, but happy to be joining you all.
Oh, thank you, Justin.
And so we just decided the third Friday of the month, we're going to close the office. And we got the idea from other organizations, so I don't want to take credit for it, but I think this is one of the things we tried to do is listen to what are other folks doing and try to find great creative solutions. And again, we were in a position to be able to do it because we're not direct service. I looked at our goals and felt like we'd still be able to hit our goals if we, added, 5 or 6 days off extra. And what it allows is people to fully shut down. And again, selfishly, for folks like me who have young kids, we're closed on Monday for President's Day, but so is my kids' daycare. So it's not, it's a day off for me from work, but I'm, full-time parenting. And my wife is actually not off at her job. And so in some ways that's not a mental break in the same way that a day like today is, where I can literally do anything I want. And so I think that kind of thing is really important to keep in mind. And, things like PTO don't cost us anything. They cost us time, but it doesn't impact our bottom line. We're not going to spend money on it. We have done a couple things to put money towards this as well. After talking with Kelly, I heard about a great thing that you all are doing. And so we decided to do it as well for the rest of the year. And that's to offer, have already offered things like professional development stipends and home office stipends to support folks with having what they need to do remote work. But I love the idea of a self-care stipend. that I understand is something that MANP has done. And so we decided I just did some reforecasting for the rest of our fiscal year, and we're in good shape, and had some cost savings in some places. And so I decided to put them towards giving each employee a very small budget for self-care that operates in a reimbursement model, so they can use it or not. And there's very few stipulations on it. Basically, if it's something that brings someone joy and helps them recover and feel more ready to come back to work 100%, go for it. It could, if it's a Netflix subscription, if it's a meal out, I really, if it's a massage, I don't really care that much. So I think just offering those things for folks are nice. I'll be curious to see if all that money gets spent through. But I think just offering those things authentically, I think shows people that we're thinking about this, we're caring about them as people first. And I am blessed also with a board that is intensely supportive of this. So we've been having these conversations out in the open. The board is curious what's happening with staff. They're curious how folks are doing, and they are very supportive of me doing things like adding the Friday off for the self-care stipend in the middle of the year, which was not something we budgeted for. So I think that's been really important too.
Great. Thank you, Justin. And thank you for your time this morning. I'm going to do a little bit of the newscaster thing where thank you for your time. I want to make sure I get to all my guests today. So I appreciate it. You're bringing up a lot of really good points. And in the chat, I just want to highlight again, there's a big difference between those of us who are have the ability to be able to be online and working from home and doing more the office work versus direct care. And some of you are bringing up those issues of what, we already give a lot of PTO. We already give people a lot of flexibility. What are we going to do about the direct service that just has to happen? Molly, are you willing to come back? I'm definitely planning on having you on next. I know the JCA definitely has this issue with providing direct service through your childcare and all your other services. And you have, in addition, so maybe you can address a little bit about the difference between the people who have to be on the front lines all the time. But then also you guys have come up with a clever way of trying to address some of those burnout issues. How are you? Welcome this morning.
Thanks, Jennifer. I just want to thank you first for kicking off with that article. I read that last week, I think, and have been sending it to anyone and talking to anyone who will listen about all of the insights that I think it brings. So we at the J run a variety of programs, and we have staff who do a lot of direct service and have continued to do so throughout the pandemic. We run a summer camp and a preschool, and most recently have started a refugee resettlement work, but also have ongoing diaper distribution and an essentials pantry. And so when we started to think about how to address this, it really did feel like we already give a lot of PTO, and a lot of what we've been hearing this morning was on the table. How do we help everyone step back altogether? Because one of the things during the pandemic is that people have struggled to actually take even the vacation that they've earned, because it feels like there's so much that is necessary to do in advance of going away, and then work piles up while you're gone, and you come back and feel really overwhelmed with that. And it's almost easier to keep on trucking, which I think it certainly leads to burnout over a longer period of time. So Jewish tradition includes this tradition of Shabbat, a weekly holiday of a day of rest between Friday sundown and Saturday sundown. And the material surrounding the tradition is really about rest and not working, but also rejuvenation. And the importance, the sort of foundational idea is that even after 6 days of creating the world, God takes a day of rest, right? So everything needs to take time to rejuvenate and rest. So I had heard last spring about a colleague who runs a JCC and Federation in South Carolina She actually made a post about a sabbatical that they were planning for the summer. So to really just shut down all of their operations simultaneously. And I do think that runs counter to, for many of us, the culture of nonprofit work that we've been steeped in, which is go, 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 and keep expanding and keep doing more and more. But I was really inspired by the concept and brought it to the board and was excited about their response. They really understood immediately the power of having everyone rest simultaneously and take this break. So the biggest challenge for us was figuring it out in terms of the schedule and finding time, given all the different programs that we run, that this would be feasible. And we were able to identify time in August, which was also great because it's summer in Maine. So a great time for people to step back. And we did a lot of work on scheduling and planning work in advance so that people were ready to really make sure that they wouldn't have to stop in for a meeting or pick up some missing piece while we were off. And we articulated to the community that we'd be away, and so didn't find that it was actually particularly disruptive. I think that time of year is also a time in Maine where things tend to slow down. A lot of our community members are on vacation or away as well. So that really helped to make it possible. But I think this idea that being fully off is very difficult in this current environment. It really made me rethink the structure of our PTO. So it's something we'll continue to look for solutions around. And I don't know if it's something we'll be able to offer consistently moving forward, but we're certainly going to talk about doing it again this summer.
Great. Thank you, Molly. We really appreciate all the work that JCA does in our community. Thank you so much. And I send you lots of hugs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Molly. That's great. One of the things I'm thinking about, everybody, is that as everyone's pointing out, that we kind of like, we get it, right? We're the choir, like, we get it. We're making these changes, but how can we sustain them? How can we work within a system that doesn't necessarily respond back with, like, I'm not exactly sure who in chat, but said, but wait, all the donors are here in the summer. So what are we going to do? We can't take summer off. We got to ask all the, like, our system is not necessarily. So we need to start advocating, and what I'm hearing from Justin and Molly so far, and this is true with MANP too, is our boards are supportive, and the board leadership. What I'm talking here is about, we need to start bubbling back up to our boards and then our funders, and advocating for change around the expectation for nonprofits, and the fact that we cannot continue to do what we're doing with the resources we have. And we have to start advocating up or out into the system that has unfairly put too much burden on nonprofits to do the work we do. And it's a long time coming. It's a long change. It doesn't mean there's going to be immediate solutions right away. But I do believe that we need to start working together to voice to people what the reality is on the ground, is that we just don't have enough people to do the work that needs to get done. And we need other people in our society to support us in that. Okay, Matt, can you come on and join me? How are you, Matt?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Matt is with Group Mainstream, and you are based in Westbrook, and your organization's been around a long time. Have you been the executive director for a long time as well?
I'm the HR director.
You're HR director.
Executive director just yet. She's been with us. Emery Mayberry is the executive director. She's been with us well over 30 years. She's actually had every position in the agency, which says a lot. Says a lot for her and the agency, I believe. I always tell new people within the agency that about Emery, because there are opportunities for growth within GMS. So it's good for people to know that. But
so you guys have
around.
Yeah, I'm sorry. How many employees do you have?
We're short right now. We normally have about 150. We're running about in the low 120s right now. We also have about 130 contracted shared living providers who do adult foster care throughout the state. But we have about 125 employees.
And how
Southern-
many of those are providing direct service, like we're making today, this morning, the clear distinction between those of us who maybe are in more administrative roles or more indirect support roles, so that we have certain flexibilities, working in the office, working remotely. And then I'm sure you have plenty of people who are doing direct service work where they have to be in person. What percentage of that do you have?
Most of our employees, out of the, let's say 120 employees, about 90 are direct care.
Yeah.
So,
It's-
I'm hearing a lot of wonderful conversation about, adjustments being made throughout the pandemic and PTO, things that we can offer our employees, support we're offering our employees. GMS has done a lot around. One thing we've learned throughout the pandemic is the amount of trust you can have for employees. We're definitely out of the office a lot more. The administrative staff has been out of the office a lot more. We've been able to provide a lot more trust, a lot more flexibility. The work-life balance is there. So for the administrative staff, if you have that doctor's appointment, it's really important. Let them have the doctor's appointment. They have want to watch their child's soccer game. It's really important. Let them watch the child's soccer game. Those are things a couple of years ago, there was a lot less flexibility. And so if there's anything, we've learned from the pandemic, it's work-life balance is so important. But, Kelly, when Kelly approached me a few weeks ago about talking about employee engagement and retention initiatives, I did think more about the direct care staff, because that's really our the bulk of our employees. And I thought about, how important it is, the sense of community, is here at GMS. If we have a sense of community, if we're able to foster a sense of community here at GMS, we're able to retain employees. So I just wanted to talk briefly about one thing that we do here at GMS. It seems like something small, but it's actually developed into something really big. We have what's called a community board, and through the community board, we have what's called an impression. Employees are able to recognize each other in real time through what's called an impression. They're able to, it's sort of like an electronic pictographs that are posted on this community board in real time, much like a scaled down Facebook for GMS. Impressions allow employees, supervisors, directors, whoever within the agency to recognize employees in real time. They can be made public or private, and they become part of the employee's personnel file. And it's really fun come employee eval time to review them. So, and then once a month, I do a little video. It's like a 3 to 5 minute video. I post it online, and it's called Wheel of Impressions, and people watch it. Anyone who got an impression for the month gets put on the wheel, and you get a chance to win $50. So it's kind of fun for the direct care staff to watch this, and they get an extra, and the employees love it. So we do this on top of, we also every month do a direct support staff and administrative staff employee of the month. These are little initiatives that we do to foster a sense of community at GMS. It's a way to keep employees engaged. Engagement is a constant, ongoing thing, and it's not just something that I do to stay engaged with the employees. It's something that it's an important initiative that the managers stay part in. The manager involvement is so important in this type of an initiative. And this is just one example of something that GMS keeps alive. And this is pushed through our employee recognition committee that meets as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that, Matt. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning. And thank you for the work that your organization does to support members of our community. And that's a really great point. I'm going to move to our final organization. Thank you so much, Matt. We invited Goodwill of Northern New England to join us, and Kelly Osborn, I think, is going to be coming on and telling us a little bit about how Goodwill is managing over 1,000 employees across Northern New England. Isn't that right, Kelly?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. We have just over about 1,400 employees, 1,450 in that range at any given time across 3 states, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And, we're very diverse. We have everything from retail stores to cleaning business to workforce services. And then, of course, our large healthcare division that serves people with disabilities in residential services and neural rehab clinics through case management, case coordination, through supported living in their homes. So it's quite vast, but we have a number of our employees who are direct workers that can't work from home like many of us, in a remote way. So yes, so we have a very diverse population. And as all of you know, we've never seen harder times, in terms of employee burnout, in terms of just the stress that you take on when your entire job is to care for someone 24/7, ensure that not only that they're getting their basic needs met, but they're able to engage in their lives, in their communities, in their work. So as you all know, I don't even have to say, when we have a diminished capacity in terms of fewer staff to provide those supports, there's a lot of stress on those staff. So we've really worked hard at Goodwill to ensure that we're providing support for our staff and really trying to address those burnout issues in a number of ways. At Goodwill, we always operate under 8 citizenship behaviors. Be kind, be open, be flexible, be consistent, listen to understand, speak up, offer praise, and own it. So that is our basic footprint, if you will, to say every interaction we have with each other, that's what we have to hold ourselves accountable, and also hold our peers accountable with the understanding that we stumble. So when we do, let's own that, but let's also speak up as we help others to own that, because it's hard out there. So that's kind of just how we function under a framework. But we've done a lot specifically during COVID to support our workers. And, I do want to say absolutely healthcare, but then we have cleaning. We have cleaning where we have people going out and cleaning and sanitizing large places like the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. Same thing. They can't work off site. They've got to be present there and cleaning. And in our stores, our workers are there every day receiving donated goods, sorting them, making sure they're out and available for our customers. So we just have so many people, if you will, on those front lines.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the things that you've done to try to acknowledge that?
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to go through a few, what I'll characterize as smaller things and then tell you the bigger nugget of our deeper supports for people. But certainly flexible schedules. We've really looked at, can people work 3 days, 4 days, 4.5 days? What does that look like? How do we really help them be able to meet their needs at home? Because as many of you know, with this pandemic, a lot of our workers, they have children to take care of, they have families, and things shifted there. Maybe their kids weren't going to school anymore. So flexible around how we schedule, how we ensure that we're looking at each person as an individual. What do they need? How do we work with them to meet those needs? We've certainly looked at pay increases and bonuses for people who are out there on that front line in the COVID situation. We've looked at that repeatedly over the last few months to how do we do that for individuals as well. We also increase communication. Someone else had mentioned that. I think that's been very important. Every week, we put out what we call the Goodwill Gazette that gives information, whether it's about everyone has to wear a mask, things like that, but also let's highlight what's going so well. Let's acknowledge those people who are out there every day. And our CEO, Rich Kantz, also does frequently videos talking to people, and he gets a lot of information, a lot of comments back. They go directly to Rich, and he responds to everyone. So just really open communication, hearing people, meeting them where they are. And then the last thing that I really want to highlight today is a real deep wraparound support that we provide to our employees. We call it our Employee Life Navigator services. So we have Employee Life Navigators on our staff. These are certified counselors. Some are, LCPCs, some are licensed clinical social workers. We have people who have licensure in substance use counseling, those types of case management. So quite a diverse team there. And they work specifically with our employees in a very confidential way. Our employees reach out to them, and they work to provide them the supports they need, the resources, connect them with resources to really reduce those life barriers that get in the way. We know it's transportation, it's housing, it's mental health. Sometimes it's all of these different things, and they developed an individualized plan with every single employee. They wrap them around with supports to address their needs. And we also are fortunate to have some flexible funding through our former CEO, Ann Roosevelt, has worked with Goodwill to establish what we call the Roosevelt Fund. But it's for employees, and it's about that flexible funding. When someone's car breaks down unexpectedly and they just simply don't have the funds to repair it, we can help. So we have that very, very deep support that we're providing. And those Employee Life Navigators, they're going out into our residential homes to meet with employees. They will go wherever our employees are. They spend time on site at the stores. They meet with people in coffee shops or wherever they want to meet with us. And we allot that time to our employees paid. So if employees are reaching out and meeting with an Employee Life Navigator while they're on the job, then their time is paid, and the managers work very closely to ensure that they're always paid, regardless of if they're on the floor working in a store or meeting with someone to work on their individualized planning. So it's a very deep services. The other final thing I'll say about it is very excitedly, we're not only doing it for our own employees, but we have contracts with other employees like Casella Waste Systems, Rutland Regional Medical Center in Vermont Country Stores, and we're also able to provide this support to their employees. So that is the big nugget that we have going on right now at Goodwill.
That's an amazing model. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kelly. It's really demonstrating how you're putting the people first and not just making employees cogs in a wheel to be productive, right? And so thank you so much. Absolutely.
And the one thing I didn't mention is the entire piece of our strategic plan is employees first. Employees first. And that's why we're looking at it deeply and learning all the time too. How do we continue to hear from our employees? We receive feedback from them through surveys, and we listen. And what else can we put in place to make sure we're meeting those needs? Because they are, as with all of you, they're the most important part of who we are. Because with them, we're able to provide the best of services to the people who need us the most.
That's right. Thank you so much, Kelly. That was really, really helpful. And
Yes.
I obviously packed way too much into wanting to what I hope to cover today. I'm so heartened by the communication, the back and forth that I'm seeing in the chat. It sounds like people are getting some ideas out of this. And I'll talk to our team about sharing out some of the things that have happened in chat so that you guys have them because I know some of you may be thinking, oh, I missed I actually feel that, like I feel like I missed a lot in chat already that I want to go over. So we'll try to do that. Hey, Kelly, can we just for the last minute, can we just quickly do our would you rathers just really fast? Okay, would you rather write a grant application or ask a donor for a big gift in person? Really? You guys would rather ask a donor for it? That's really fascinating. So interesting. Look at that, everybody. Most of you wanted to do the big gift. Okay, next one. Okay, would you rather have a little PTO with amazing benefits or unlimited PTO with no benefits or meh benefits? Amazing little PTO, oh, look at that. Look at that. I can even see, look at that. There's much, that's the end poll. Okay, sharing results. Okay. I'm obviously going way too fast on these, but this is interesting. Last one. Would you rather travel 100 years into the future or 100 years into the past? Okay, this is good. This is good. This is interesting. I'll definitely manage to share this one. Oh, we've got, oh, very interesting. I'm going to end this poll. I'm going to share the results. This was the most divided. Fascinating. Okay, guys, it's 9:45. Thanks to Harvard Pilgrim. Thanks to Machia Savings. Thanks for Maine Biz. In March, we want to talk about building alliances as a way to collectively send messages to people outside of our networks to let them know that we together are solving shared problems and we each have a piece of the pie. So if you have a particular idea that you would want to share, I want to keep doing this format with where I invite on several people to come and just share what they're dealing with, the questions they have, the ideas that they have. And so if you have a particular thought around that, Kelly, will you put your email in chat just so people know? And I'm sorry, I know it's such a complex time, everybody. Hang in there. MANP is here. We're going to come back in a month. Hope to see you all. Have a great Friday.